cast of 2020, huh? I'm not exactly sure what the title of this video is, but this is the kind of style I've been loving for my Sims. And it's a bit of alpha and max's match. Not too much, but enough for it to feel like it looks better than what the game has for offer, but it doesn't look too off-putting. Something else I've been adding to my gameplay are disabilities. Now, before you leave a comment, hear me out first. I don't enjoy and want to enjoy the suffering of others in any shape or form. But personally, I really love playing with realism and telling stories in my videos, and the fact that there are more types of Sims to make than ever before is something I really love, but also really appreciate. I feel like everything is always way too perfect, and there's a bit of a controversial story about all of this, which I'll get into in just a few seconds. Sims don't really die unless I make them. I don't have much deaths. Either it's old age or it's fire. Yeah, just two. There aren't really any illnesses. I think it's nice to have a bit of everything, good and bad. Just because someone has something doesn't mean their life is in any way lacking. But I can understand why people don't make games with, quote, disabilities, because then you would need to implement different aspects to games, which potentially could change the entire game, or people find it controversial. Is my wording, don't get me wrong, this is something I read about and thought was interesting enough to share with you guys into your perspective. Since I'm doing a deaf sim for this cast, I felt like it was kind of fitting. I mean, I get it. I personally do not mind having it in gameplay. You can download. I think it's also a really good option. I always play around with the character in cast and add things as I go on. I definitely didn't mean to make her deaf, but somehow I got up to that point and went with it. I can see why this could be somewhat of a topic though. Well, I don't actually have much disability in my life. I just have anxiety, and depending how you look at that, it can be a disability. I use anxiety throughout my gameplays as a form of expression, as a form of storytelling, and because I know how it feels, and in certain aspects, of course, I can relate and make sure I implement this in my Let's Play in a very respectful manner. Speaking from experience, this is my first cast I've ever done, and the furthest I've ever gone was making a sim with postpartum depression, which I thought at that time was some pretty heavy shit. Personally, I always try to be as respectful as I can. So I can understand the difference in gameplay. Also makes a difference in experience. Also a very good point about this whole controversial story, like what defines respectful talking about disabilities, and why does something like that need in the first place? I mean, not everyone wants respect after they lost a leg. Not everyone wants respect because they're deaf, because they're blind. Not everyone cares about that. And some people do. Some people genuinely want respect because they have it, and that's how they deal with it. So what is the line? Where do you cross a line? Play around with that in a respectful way. Not only can you bring light and shine light to these things that remind you that there are so many different people on this planet, and we should all be really kind to each other. Maybe I'm going too deep into this now. Maybe people do not look at Let's Plays as things that are inspirational or deep, or I found this particular topic quite interesting. And the more I started thinking about that, it kind of makes you not only think about this topic, but it makes you think about other topics as well. Because just because this is now about disabilities doesn't mean it couldn't be about anything else, right? Like now we're talking about physical disabilities, which is also controversial on its own, because I guess by term it's called a disability because it's out of the norm, but do the people that have it consider it a disability or not? That's also a whole other thing. Not everyone thinks the same, so should we base our facts on the people that want it or the people that do not want it? Should there even be... Maybe I'm looking way too deep in this story, but just imagine it's about something else, right? It could be about anything. Where do you draw a line, and how do you deal with that? Now, I'm obviously not saying that we can't ever make a Let's Play or a video or a cast about something that is different, something that is unusual is kind of offensive, because just because people have something doesn't necessarily mean they're different than us. It just means they had something different happen to them. Also, one of the things I firmly believe is that people who had things happen to them don't necessarily have such different lives in general. You know, just because, this is what I think, if you were to make a let's play about someone that perhaps can't see, that it doesn't necessarily mean that this entire let's play is only focused on the bad of that or the good of that. As a matter of fact, a good let's play shouldn't even really be only about the good and the bad of things. I think it should just be about this whole experience. Like, you don't have to address the situation in 12 episodes. You don't have to not address it at all. Obviously, if your sim can't see, you'll have to come up with a storyline on how your sim is walking, you know, or how your sim goes about their days, and just kind of like guidelines as to why your sim behaves a certain way. But I think once you start going too deep into these these quote disabilities, I think that's when you're really maybe not even crossing, but when you're really going out of line and you're making it more about disabilities and gameplay, is that it's not about, like I said, the good or the bad, at least not to me. It's about perhaps addressing it and sharing some lights on it, but for the rest, just creating a storyline and go from there. I don't think it's not something we should talk about. I think it's a beautiful thing if it can be implemented within the storyline in a tactful, in a respectful way. Yes, perhaps so. Maybe. But that's just my thoughts. I don't think we should avoid it. I don't think avoiding is the answer to anything. This controversy, if it's even a controversy, has really made me think about this more than I ever thought I would. I definitely think it's interesting to see how different people think about this kind of things and what is out of line and what isn't, but we'll see. Okay, anyway, this video has been long enough. I'll see if I can get a link up, but maybe not, because I don't really want to find the custom content. That's just my honest opinion. But maybe I will one of these days. Maybe we'll see about that. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next part. Bye.